You probably know Oxford University and Cambridge University, as they are two of the best universities in the world. But here's something you probably didn't know. They are considered rivals, and the rivalry between them is battled out every year in a centuries-old tradition that still exists today. In this video, you're going to learn all about it through the shadowing technique. I'm absolutely delighted to tell you about this classic piece of British culture, which is known simply as the boat race. Soon I will tell you more about this historic race. But before we jump in, a quick word on the shadowing technique. For this method, we are focused on immediate repetition. Try to speak at the exact same time as I do, focusing less on translation and understanding and more on copying my pace, rhythm, and intonation. This lesson can also work as a listening exercise if you are out and about and don't want to be speaking aloud. Right, everyone, get ready to dive into one of Britain's oldest and most iconic sporting stories, the Oxford and Cambridge boat race. This race isn't just a competition, it's a massive tradition, a huge annual event that stops London for an afternoon. It pits two of the world's most famous universities against each other. The University of Oxford, known as the Dark Blues, and the University of Cambridge, the Light Blues. But how did this incredible event, which sees two 8-person crews battle it out over 4 miles of the River Thames, actually begin? It all comes down to a simple, friendly challenge between two old school friends. The year was 1829. Imagine a time when most competitive sports between universities hadn't even started yet. The idea for this great rowing race came from two young men who were still students. First, there was Charles Merivale, who was studying at Cambridge University. Second, there was his old schoolmate, Charles Wordsworth, who was studying at Oxford University. Both men had attended the same school, Harrow, before going to the rival universities. They met up during a holiday, and while they were chatting, they started to argue about which university had the best rowers. It was a classic bit of one-upmanship, and they decided the only way to settle it was with a proper race. This wasn't some official order from the university. It was just a challenge between friends. Merivale went back to his boat club at Cambridge, and they officially sent a letter to Oxford. The challenge was simple and direct. They said, "The University of Cambridge hereby challenge the University of Oxford to row a match at or near London, each with an 8-oared boat during the ensuing Easter vacation." Oxford quickly accepted, and just like that, the first boat race was set. The very first race took place a few months later, on June 10th, 1829. They raced in the beautiful town of Henley-on-Thames, which is personally one of my favourite places in the UK. It was a huge spectacle even then. Contemporary newspapers wrote that about 20,000 people travelled to watch the event. In fact, the enthusiasm for the first race was so strong that it later led to the creation of the world-famous Henley Royal Regatta in the same town. For the first race, each crew chose their colours. The Oxford crew's rowing uniforms were dark blue because 5 of the rowers came from Christ Church College, and that was the college's colour. This is why Oxford is known as the dark blues today. Cambridge, however, wore pink sashes, but later adopted light blue, and that's been their colour ever since. Oxford were the clear winners in that first contest, taking an easy victory over the Cambridge crew. For the next few years, the race happened on and off, with lots of arguments about where it should be held. Oxford preferred Henley, but Cambridge preferred London. They raced a few times on a stretch of the Thames between Westminster and Putney. But over time, central London became too busy with commercial ships and river traffic, making the course unsafe and unfair. Finally, in 1845, they settled on the course that everyone knows today, the championship course. This 4.2-mile course runs along a section of the River Thames in West London, starting at Putney Bridge and finishing at a post just before Mortlake. This section of the river is known as the Tideway, and it's famous for its winding bends and tricky currents. From 1856 onwards, the race became a permanent annual fixture, only being cancelled in the years of the 2 world wars and the recent pandemic. A key part of the tradition is that it's the losing team from the previous year that issues the formal challenge for a rematch every year, keeping that original rivalry alive. It is also important to mention that the rivalry grew to include women's crews as well. The women's boat race was first held in 1927. However, for many years it was treated differently from the men's event. For instance, the crews would often row separately and were judged on their time and style, not in a head-to-head race. It finally became a proper side-to-side race over a shorter course in the 1930s. In a huge step forward for the sport, since 2015, the women's and men's races have both been held on the same day and over the full same championship course on the Tideway. This ensures that the female athletes compete on the exact same stage as the men, which is a fantastic sign of progress. Today, the Oxford-Cambridge boat race is an amateur race, meaning the rowers are all full-time students. Yet, it attracts an absolutely enormous worldwide audience of millions of people on television and radio. And hundreds of thousands lined the banks of the Thames in London to cheer on the dark blues and the light blues. It remains a pure sporting contest, a difficult, demanding race that is a true test of strength, teamwork, and endurance. And to think, it all started with a challenge between two friends on a university holiday almost 2 centuries ago. It really shows how big traditions can start from the simplest of moments. So there you have it, the story of how one of the world's greatest amateur sporting rivalries came to be. Now you're ready to tell this piece of history to your friends and family. If you'd like to receive practical tips and real-life English expressions delivered straight to your inbox, don't forget to subscribe to my free newsletter. The link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. See you next time!